So I was walking through Cabot after I got my hair trimmed on Friday, and I think I talked about it a little bit on the Friday stream too. But I was walking through Cabot, and there was this guy that he like, I was like walking around the corner, and he like walked up next to me, and he was like waving at me, and I was like, oh, here's how full of myself I am. I was like, oh, he must know me. He must know who I am. This guy knows who I am. And I was like, hi. Hello? And he was like, he was not my fan. He did not know who I was. And so it was one of those people that's like around, you know, they do it around Queen Square a bit, and they do it in Cabot. And so he had on like a jacket with a logo on it, and lanyard with a logo on it for something. He was like, oh, I wanted to say I really like your tattoos. And I was like, thanks. And then he was like, oh my god. He was like, I really like your neck tattoo. He goes, could I see a little bit more of it? And I was like, okay. So I pulled my neckline down just the tiniest bit, and I was like, yeah, it's snakes. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, I'm not trying to be weird or anything, but could I see a little bit more of it? And I was like, sure. So I just pulled it down like a little bit more, and he's like, wow, that's so cool. Whatever. People have asked it in a creepier way, and it didn't feel creepy, so I was like, sure, whatever. And then he was like talking about his tattoos. And like, since I'm from America, I'm used to strangers just talking to each other and like making conversation. It's very common. Over 1 million hedgehogs starve every day. I didn't think it was weird, Connor. I didn't think it was weird. At least not like to see my boobs or anything. I think it was fine. And so I was like, oh, okay, like this guy, he just wanted to say something nice about my tattoos, because then he showed me his tattoos. So he was like, he pulled up the back of his shirt. He's like, oh, I've got a back piece started. And I was like, oh, that's cool, because people that have tattoos usually, no offense to anyone, but people that usually have bad tattoos that see someone with a good tattoo really want to show their tattoos to that person. So he pulled up the back of his shirt, and he had actually like a pretty cool tattoo, and it was like a Japanese style, like black clouds with like a snake's head. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I was like, I have my arm done too. And he was looking at my arm, and then this random guy walking past that was like probably around the same age as me too was like, oh shit, that's really cool. So it was just, you know, whatever. So I was like, fine. And then he was like, oh yeah, all your tattoos are really, really cool. And then he was like, he was talking to me a bit. I can't remember what else he said. And then he was like, do you shave your arm? And I was like, yeah, I think it just makes the tattoo look better. And basically that was it, Simon. And so he was like, he asked me if I shaved my arm. I said, yeah. And then he's like, oh, I started shaving my stomach because I have my stomach tattooed too. And then he had like, I gotta draw it. Ugh. Where's my window capture? So he pulled up the front of his shirt, then, to show me his stomach tattoo. And he was like one of those guys that does not have, that does not pull their trousers up all the way. And so he had like this, and his like jeans were down here, and then his like pants were here, and his belly button was here, and then like they had the waistline or whatever, but it was like his fucking dick was just like being pushed up by his fucking trousers. Like it was outlined basically and just fucking poking out essentially. And I was like, and then he had some like symbols on his stomach or whatever, and I just was like, oh. Because, you know, people like to wear their trousers so fucking low like that. Dick above the jeans, dude, but in the pants. I don't think this part was on purpose. I don't think he was showing me his dick. But I was kind of like, this guy's dick is really, on fucking display right now. Whatever. I just was like, okay. Cool. Tattoos or whatever. They were not that great, the stomach ones. Those ones were more of the worst ones. So, Pip, it gets worse though, because then, oh, there was no mushroom head, which I'm so fucking glad for, because that's happened to me before too. Then he goes on, and then he gives me he's like, oh, are you busy right now? And I was like, yeah, I'm on my way to work. And it was like Friday at like 5 p.m. Mistake to say that, because he was like, oh, what's your job? And I was like, media or whatever. And then he was like, oh, well, is it okay if I just tell you real fast about the thing that I work for? And I was like, and then he was like, so I'll give you the fast version. And basically it was this charity that does like help for homeless people, and he's like quizzing me, right? And he's like, and he had like he was Spanish, he had like a Spanish accent, and so he was saying like, what do you think is the #1 reason why people are homeless? And I was like, mental health, I don't know, not having a job. And so he's basically telling me like that he's like, our company or our charity, no, I did not buy a Big Issue. Our charity helps homeless like teens. I think it was like between 16 and like 24 or something like that ages. And he was like, he's like, oh, and you know, we help them. We've got another charity that helps us called Mind, who helps prepare them with their mental health. And then after that, they can go out for job interviews, and because they're well prepared. And then after that, we basically, what he was asking me to do was to pay a subscription monthly for someone's like housing basically. And he's like, there's different tiers of how much money that you can pay. And yeah, like all of that sounds really, really nice. But it was like, yeah, pay a subscription for this person to be able to stay somewhere. And I was like, man, like, I don't want to get my phone out with this guy, because he was showing me their charity on Instagram and everything like that, and I think they had 25,000 followers or something. And I don't know, I think he was like, it can be as little as £5 a month to help pay for the apartment or something. But then it was like, but you have to pay for a minimum of 1 year so that they have a stable place to stay, right? And I was like, oh geez, like, this sounds like a lot to commit to, as much as I fucking already donate to charity and everything. And so I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to get my phone out, because I knew if he was like, let me just show you something real quick, the minute I took my phone out, he would have me fucking signing up for shit. And so I was like, oh, I told a lie. And I was like, I just moved here from America, and I don't have a bank account set up yet, and so I can't pay for anything yet because I do not have a bank account. Which I do have a bank account, so that's the lie. But I was like, yeah, I just don't have a way to pay for that. I don't have a bank account. You can't say no and hate confrontation. Well, so then the next part of this is I know I could have just said no and walk away, but I was just like, I think I was so caught off guard by someone approaching me, and then I was like, oh, this person must know me, and then he was just talking about tattoos, which I'm so used to from, like, you know, being in Florida in America, where it's like people will just talk to you. So then after that, I was like, yeah, I can't do that because I just moved from America and I don't even have a bank account set up yet, so sorry, I can't, but I'll look it up on the internet or whatever and check it out. And then he goes, oh, okay, yeah, totally understandable. He goes, there's no way he will see this. Sorry, but also, I'm not interested. But he was like, so you just moved here from America, huh? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but you're gonna be living here now? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, you know, do you think I could get your phone number so that we could go out for coffee sometime? And I didn't know what to say. And so I just said, I fucking Cinderella Sleeping Beauty'd him. You know, in Sleeping Beauty, when she meets the prince out in the woods and he goes, you should come with me, and she goes, I can't, and she leaves? That's what I did. So he said, do you think I could get your phone number and take you out for coffee sometime? And I looked this person in the eyes and I said, oh no, I can't. Nice talking to you. And I walked away. Oh no, I can't. I just said I can't. I didn't even explain anything. And it was like, afterwards I was like, oh, what the heck did I just do to this person? But I did say nice talking to you, you know? I just said, I didn't even say sorry, I can't. I just said, oh no, I can't. I can't. I could have said no as well. And I hate the other ones where it's like, you know, sometimes depending on what you say, I think subconsciously I was like, oh, you know, sometimes depending on what you say, like guys will like push it where they'll be like, oh, like that's not enough a good enough reason, which they don't say that outright, but that's what they're communicating, right? And I think I just was like, oh, I've got to say this in a way where, because sometimes I'll say things like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Because that's quite like, sometimes when people hear that, their like ego is so deflated by it that then they don't. But also because that's the truth. Man has no riz. He gave you a tease with his undergarmented cockhead, you turned him down. Well, I was like, oh my Christ. Because he was like, oh, you know, like right before he said it, he was like, you know, I really love your style. Like, I love your hair, like your makeup, because I had my makeup done where I have it like onto my eyelids too. And he was like, oh, like your makeup looks really cool, like snakes or something. And I was like, thanks. And he's like, yeah, and just your style, like I love all of it. And then he was like, oh, could I also get your phone number and we could go for coffee? Oh no, I can't. It was nice talking to you. Walks away. Welp. That was it. Mito Choco's gotta go back to work. Goodbye, Mito Choco. Imagine if you signed up and he'd had your contact details. Well, also, like, I'm like, even though he was nice, I feel like that's quite a strange thing to do, where I was talking to him to hear about the charity thing, I guess, and because I felt a bit trapped. And then it was like, so then that was an opportunity for him to do that, you know? Yeah, it was kind of weird.